October 17th, 2024. 3:07 a.m. Rain tapped against the window like fingernails on glass. A cold, insistent rhythm in the dark. Anna hadn't slept. Not really. She'd been drifting in that hollow space between exhaustion and grief. The kind where memories feel like physical weights pressing down on your chest. It had been 14 months since David died. 14 months of silence in a house that once echoed with his laughter, his terrible singing in the shower, the way he'd hum while fixing a leaky faucet. Now, there was only the tick of the hallway clock. And the emptiness. So thick, she could taste it. She'd moved here 6 weeks ago. A smaller house, farther from the city. A fresh start, they called it. It felt more like surrender. Boxes still lined the hallway, half unpacked. Photographs face down in drawers. She couldn't bear to see his smile, not yet. Not in every room. That's when Mabel found her. Or rather, Anna found Mabel. Behind the dumpster at the old apartment complex on moving day. A scrap of damp calico fur, trembling. One ear notched, a pale scar slicing through the dark stripes. Like she'd fought something and lost. Her eyes, huge and gold, held no fear. Just a weary kind of watchfulness. Anna hadn't planned on a cat. David had been allergic. But this cat, this broken little creature, stared up at her and didn't blink. It felt less like a choice and more like a quiet collision. Now, Mabel lived here, quietly. She wasn't a cuddler. She'd curl up on the far end of the sofa or vanish into shadowy corners for hours. Her presence was subtle, a rustle in the laundry basket, the soft thud of paws landing on the rug. She'd watch Anna, those gold eyes following her as she moved through rooms, sipping tea, staring blankly at her laptop screen. A silent witness to the unmoving days. But tonight, Mabel wasn't silent. The first meow came sharp, urgent. From the bedroom doorway, Anna stirred, burying her face deeper into David's old pillow. Go back to sleep, she thought. Please. Another meow. Closer. Then another, high, stretched thin with some... Not hunger. Not the usual soft chirp Mabel used when her bowl was empty. This sound was a frayed wire. Live and sparking. Anna opened her eyes. The digital clock glowed 3:11 a.m. Rain streaked the window, casting watery shadows on the wall. Mabel stood at the foot of the bed. Not her usual loose-limbed posture. Rigid, tail held stiff and low. Her scarred ear twitched, fixated not on Anna, but on the bedroom door and the dark hallway beyond. Please, sweetheart, Anna whispered, her voice thick with fatigue. Coming. She pushed back the heavy quilt, feet hitting the cold wood floor. A shiver ran through her, unrelated to the chill. Mabel didn't lead her to the kitchen or the back door. She trotted purposefully down the hall, stopping only to glance back, her eyes catching the faint light, gleaming like polished coins. Hurry. They passed the half-open door to the spare room, a cave of unpacked boxes, David's winter coat still draped over one. Past the silent living room, the blue glow of the router blinking in the dark. Mabel's tail tip flicked, impatient. Then she stopped. At the door Anna hated, the one she kept closed. The garage door. It was an old, heavy thing, painted white years ago, now chipped and yellowing. Anna hadn't opened it since moving in. The garage was David's domain. His tools, his unfinished projects, the smell of sawdust and engine oil that still clung faintly to his shirts. Just thinking about stepping inside felt like walking into a room full of shattered glass. She'd shoved boxes in there, Things she couldn't deal with yet. David's fishing rods. His collection of vintage baseball caps. The box marked Dave's Workshop Miscellaneous. The door stayed shut. A boundary. Mabel sat directly in front of it now. Her small body a tense silhouette against the white paint. She lifted her head and let out a sound Anna had never heard before. Not a meow. A yowl. Low, guttural, vibrating with a desperation that cut through the rain's rhythm. It echoed in the narrow hallway, hitting Anna right in the center of her chest. Mabel, no, and breathe, her hand instinctively going to her throat. Not in there. The cat ignored her. She pressed her small body against the bottom of the door, scrabbling lightly at the wood with one white-tipped paw. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Then another yowl, longer, more insistent. Her golden eyes, wide and unblinking, locked onto Anna's. Open it. Anna stared at the door. The cold from the floor seeped into her bare feet. The rain hammered harder. Inside that garage was a world of pain she'd carefully locked away. Dust and memories sharp enough to draw blood. But Mabel, this quiet, scarred creature who mostly kept to herself, who seemed to understand the shape of Anna's own unhealed wounds, was demanding she open it, right now. At 3:17 in the morning. It felt irrational, silly even. The cat scratching at a door. Yet Anna's pulse thrummed in her ears. A prickle of sweat formed on her neck, despite the chill. This wasn't normal. This felt like the first tremor before an earthquake. A shift deep in the silent foundations of her grief. Mabel yowled again, a sound that bypassed thought and went straight to instinct. Anna's hand, trembling slightly, reached for the cold brass knob. The metal felt like ice under her fingertips. She hesitated, breath catching in her throat. Behind this door lay the ghost of her husband's hands, his unfinished dreams, the lingering scent of his presence that might finally break her. Mabel pressed her forehead against the door, a low, continuous rumble starting in her chest. Not a purr, a growl, urgent, pleading. Turn it, the cat's eyes seemed to say, burning gold in the dark hallway. Turn the knob. Anna closed her eyes for a second, swallowed hard against the ache rising in her throat, and turned. The latch clicked, a sound absurdly loud in the sleeping house. The door eased open, just a crack. Darkness yawned beyond it, thicker, colder than the hallway air. And the smell, sawdust, old oil, damp concrete, brushed out, wrapping around Anna like a shroud. Mabel didn't hesitate. She slipped through the narrow opening, vanishing instantly into the blackness. Anna stood frozen, one hand still on the knob, the other pressed flat against her pounding heart. The garage air felt heavy, as if holding its breath. Rain drummed on the roof, a frantic counterpoint to the sudden, hollow silence from within. She took one shaky breath, then another. The cold from the open doorway crept up her bare legs. Somewhere in that impenetrable dark, her fragile, silent companion was waiting for what? Anna reached blindly inside, fingers fumbling along the rough wall, searching for the light switch she'd never used. Her knuckles brushed cold metal, then plastic. She flipped it. A single, bare bulb flickered to life overhead, casting a weak, yellowed circle on the oil-stained concrete floor below. It illuminated dust motes dancing in the sudden light. Stacked boxes, the hulking shape of an old workbench, David's dusty toolbox, and Mabel. The cat stood rigid, 10 feet into the garage, in the center of the dim light. not moving, not making a sound. Her entire body was focused, like a compass needle finding true north. On the far corner, where the deepest shadows still clung, untouched by the feeble bulb, Anna took one tentative step into the garage. The concrete was freezing under her soles. The smell of dust and forgotten things filled her nose. Her gaze followed Mabel's intense stare, peering into that dark corner. What was back there? Just boxes, she told herself. Old paint cans. Things packed away. But Mabel's stillness, her utter focused silence, was more unnerving than her yowling had been. Felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. In the dark, you couldn't see the drop, but you knew it was there. Anna's breath hitched, a small, involuntary sound in the vast quiet. This scarred little cat, who carried her own silent history, had led her here, to this closed door, this locked-away pain, at 3:19 in the morning. But the question hung in the cold air, heavy and utterly still, just like Mabel, just like the shadows in the corner that seemed, somehow, to be watching back. Anna wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how thin her pajamas were, how exposed she felt, standing in this tomb of memory. The rain on the roof sounded like whispers now. The single bulb hummed faintly. And in that moment, staring at her cat, staring into the dark, Anna felt it. A quiet shift, deep inside, where the numbness had lived for 14 months. Tiny crack, letting in a sliver of something else, sharp and cold and terrifying. Curiosity. It wasn't hope. Not yet. It was the faintest tremor, the first loosening of a stone in the wall she'd built around her heart. Mabel hadn't moved a muscle. Her golden eyes, reflecting the weak light, were fixed, unblinking, on the darkness, waiting for Anna to see, waiting for her to take the next step into the unknown space her husband left behind. The cold concrete bit into Anna's bare feet, a sharp, grounding shock. It pulled her out of the fog of grief, into the stark reality of the garage. Dust motes swirled like miniature galaxies, caught in the weak yellow halo of the single bulb. The air tasted stale, thick with the ghosts of oil, pine sawdust, and something else, damp earth and neglect. Mabel hadn't moved. She remained a statue, 10 feet away, her calico fur stark against the oil-stained floor. Her entire being was laser-focused. On the deepest corner, where the light barely reached, where shadows pooled like spilled ink, Anna hugged herself tighter, fingernails digging into her thin pajama sleeves. Just boxes, she repeated silently. Just David's old things. But the silence, Mabel's unnatural stillness, made the ordinary corner feel charged, ominous. The rain hammered overhead, a relentless percussion that seemed to vibrate through the floor, up into her bones. Taking a hesitant step, then another, Anna moved toward the cat. Each footfall echoed too loudly in the cavernous space. She passed David's old workbench, its surface scarred and stained, strewn with abandoned tools. A half-finished birdhouse lay on its side, dust coating the tiny, unpainted roof. David's project. He'd promised they'd hang it together, in the maple tree outside their old kitchen window. A fist of grief clenched around her throat, so sudden, so fierce. She stumbled. Her hand shot out, grabbing the cold metal edge of the bench for balance. Her fingers brushed against something soft, draped over a stool. She knew what it was, before her eyes fully registered it. David's flannel shirt. The blue and black one. worn thin at the elbows, smelling faintly, unmistakably, of him. Sawdust, Old Spice, and the faint, warm scent of skin. Anna's breath hitched, a ragged, broken sound. She snatched her hand back, as if the fabric had burned her. 14 months, and the smell could still drop her to her knees. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the tidal wave of memory. David laughing, pulling her close, the scratchy feel of that flannel against her cheek. Tough pressure, warm, pressed against her ankle. Anna flinched, eyes snapping open. Mabel was there, not staring at the corner anymore. She had silently crossed the space, and now leaned her small body against Anna's trembling leg, her head tilted back, those huge, gold eyes fixed on Anna's face. No judgment, just presence. A quiet anchor in the storm. The cat didn't purr, didn't rub. Her warmth, a tiny living point of contact, seeped through the thin pajama fabric. Solid. Anna let out a shuddering breath, one she hadn't realized she was holding. The crushing wave of grief didn't recede, but it felt contained, held at bay by the weight of a small cat against her leg. She didn't reach down to pet Mabel. The moment felt too fragile, like touching it might shatter this unexpected, fierce comfort. After a long moment, Mabel turned her head, slowly, deliberately, back towards the dark corner. The silent demand returned. Swallowing hard, Anna forced her gaze to follow. What was back there? Beyond the stack of sealed plastic bins labeled Christmas decor, beyond David's old mountain bike leaning against the wall, lay a recess, a built-in storage cabinet, its wooden doors warped with age and damp. Anna remembered seeing it during the rushed walk-through, dismissing it as junk storage. Now, in the dim light, with Mabel's intense focus, it looked different, ominous. The doors were closed, but one hung slightly ajar, a sliver of deeper blackness visible. Mabel took a single step forward, then stopped, looking back at Anna. The rain intensified, drumming a frantic rhythm on the garage roof. A cold draft snaked across the floor, lifting the fine hairs on Anna's arms. The smell of damp concrete grew stronger. "Okay, little one," Anna whispered, her voice rough with unshed tears. "Show me." She moved slowly, her feet numb on the cold floor. Mabel paced beside her, tail held low but no longer rigid, purposeful. As they neared the cabinet, Anna saw what she hadn't before. The wood around the slightly open door was scarred, deep, fresh-looking scratches gouged into the paint. Parallel lines, like frantic claw marks. Mabel stopped directly in front of the cabinet. She lifted her notched ear, listening intently, though Anna heard nothing but the rain. Then, the cat did something strange. She lowered her head, pressed her nose to the thin gap where the door met the frame, and inhaled deeply. Her sides expanded, then contracted. She did it again. A long, deliberate sniff. Then she looked up at Anna and let out a soft, questioning chirp. "Smell this." Hesitantly, Anna bent down. The smell was stronger here. Damp wood, mildew, and something else. Faint, almost buried. Cloying. Rotted fruit? No. Old flowers? It was elusive, unsettling. She reached out a trembling hand towards the warped wooden door. The wood felt rough, cold, under her fingertips. She pushed gently. The door resisted, swollen with moisture, then groaned open, a few reluctant inches. Darkness. Impenetrable. The weak garage light didn't penetrate the cabinet's interior. Anna fumbled for her phone in her pajama pocket, her fingers clumsy with cold and nerves. She found it, thumbed the flashlight on, and aimed the beam inside. The light cut through the dusty gloom, illuminating a jumble of forgotten things. Old paint cans, crusted shut. A tangle of extension cords. A dusty toolbox Anna didn't recognize. And, tucked right at the back, wedged into the corner, something that didn't belong. The small, woven basket. It was old, very old. The reeds were dry, brittle-looking, frayed at the edges. It had a curved handle, like a picnic basket, but smaller, much smaller, about the size of a shoebox. It was coated in a thick layer of dust, but Anna could see faded patches of color beneath, blues and yellows, once bright. Mabel let out another soft chirp, louder this time, and padded right up to the threshold of the cabinet. She didn't go in, just sat, staring intently at the basket, her tail twitching, just the tip. That Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. What was it? How did it get here? The previous owners? David? Why was it shoved so far back? And why was Mabel so fixated on it? A stray cat? In a new house? Leading her to a hidden basket? In a locked garage? At 3:30 in the morning? It felt impossible. Yet here they were. She crouched lower, ignoring the protest of her cold muscles. The sweet, cloying smell seemed stronger now, emanating from the basket. It mixed unpleasantly with the mildew. Reaching into the cabinet felt like reaching into a crypt. The air inside was colder, so her fingers brushed against the rough reeds, disturbing a cloud of dust. She sneezed, the sound startlingly loud. Mabel didn't flinch. Her eyes, reflecting the phone's beam, were unwavering. Gripping the basket's handle, Anna pulled. It was heavier than it looked. It scraped against the concrete floor of the cabinet. A dry, grating sound. As she pulled it free, into the dim garage light, the smell intensified. Sweet, familiar, yet she couldn't place it. She set the basket on the floor between her and Mabel. Dust puffed up. The cat leaned forward, sniffing the air vigorously, but didn't touch the basket itself. Her gaze flickered between Anna and the object. Intent, expectant. The basket had a simple latch, old and tarnished brass. It wasn't locked. Anna's thumb found the cold metal. Her pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the rain. This felt like trespassing. On someone else's secret. On David's space. On the past. She looked at Mabel. The cat met her gaze and blinked. Slowly, deliberately. A cat's gesture of trust. It's okay. Anna swallowed, held her breath, and flipped the latch. It clicked open, a small, definitive sound. She lifted the lid. The smell bloomed out, overpowering now. Sweet, sickly, like forgotten lilies, mixed with dust. And something else. Paper. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded, brittle blue fabric, lay a small collection of objects. Not tools. A tiny, hand-knitted sweater, cream-colored, yellowed with age. The wool felt stiff, fragile, under Anna's tentative touch. It was impossibly small, baby-sized. Beside it, a small, tarnished silver rattle, shaped like a rabbit. A faded strip of black and white ultrasound photos. The images blurry, indistinct, folded carefully, and a single envelope, plain white. No name, no address. So Anna stared. Her mind scrambled, trying to make sense of it. A baby's things? Hidden in David's garage? David, who'd never mentioned? David, who'd seemed as unprepared for children as she was. Focused on careers, travel. Later, that never came. A cold dread, deeper than grief, began to pool in Anna's stomach. What secret was this? Whose basket was this? Her hands trembled violently now. As she reached for the envelope, the paper felt thick, slightly rough. Mabel made a soft sound. Not a meow. A low murmur, deep in her throat. She shifted closer, until her side pressed against Anna's crouched leg again. Solid. The small contact, the simple weight of the cat, was the only thing anchoring Anna to the present, to the cold garage floor, the drumming rain, the dust motes dancing in the weak light. Without it, she felt she might float away, shattered by this new. She turned the envelope over. No writing, just the sealed flap. Her thumb slid under the edge, ready to tear, ready to unleash whatever truth lay inside. But she paused. The air felt thick. Mabel leaned harder against her. The scent of decaying sweetness filled her nostrils. The ultrasound photos seemed to blur, swim before her eyes. This wasn't just a basket. It was a landmine, buried in the darkest corner of her husband's closed-off world. And Mabel, this quiet, scarred creature, had led her straight to it. Anna closed her eyes for a second, feeling the warmth of the cat, the solidity of her small body. A silent question hung between them, heavy as the rain on the roof. Do I open it? Mabel pressed her head against Anna's knee. A silent nudge, not towards the envelope, but towards Anna herself. A reminder, you're here. I'm here. Anna opened her eyes, looked at the envelope, looked at the tiny yellowed sweater, looked at Mabel's unwavering gold gaze. Her thumb, still under the flap, trembled. The quiet collision in the alley behind her old apartment had just become an earthquake, and the ground beneath Anna's feet, the carefully constructed numbness of her grief, was beginning to crack wide open. The envelope sat heavy in Anna's hands. Too heavy, like it wasn't just paper inside, but something denser, something that might, if she let it, pull her under. Mabel hadn't moved. Her body remained pressed against Anna's leg, a warm, grounding weight. But her eyes, those impossible gold discs, were fixed on the envelope, waiting. Anna's thumb hovered at the sealed edge. One flick, one tear, and whatever was inside would spill into the open, into her life, a life already fractured by loss. She hesitated. The rain had softened to a drizzle now, a quiet, rhythmic tapping on the roof. The garage air smelled of dust, damp concrete, and that strange, sweet decay from the basket. Where did you come from? Anna whispered, not to Mabel, but to the envelope itself. The words hung in the cold air. No answer. Mabel shifted slightly, her claws clicking against the concrete. Then deliberately, she lifted a paw and placed it on Anna's wrist. Not scratching, not demanding, just that the pads of her toes were warm, slightly rough. A silent plea. Open it. Anna exhaled, a shaky, uneven breath. She slid her thumb under the flap. The old glue resisted for a second, then gave way with a dry, papery snick. The envelope opened. Inside, a single sheet of folded paper, cream-colored, thick, the kind used for important documents. Anna's pulse roared in her ears. She could feel Mabel's breath, soft and steady, against her knee. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the paper. It wasn't a letter. Not exactly. At the top, printed in crisp, formal font. Last Will and Testament of David Michael Carter. Anna's vision blurred. Her lungs forgot how to work. She knew this document. She had signed this document. Years ago, when they'd bought life insurance, when they joked about who would get the coffee maker. But this wasn't the copy she kept in their safe deposit box. This was something else. Because at the bottom, below the standard clauses, below the notary stamp, was a handwritten edition. In David's unmistakable, slanted script. Dated 3 weeks before the accident. Anna's hands shook so badly the paper rattled. She had to squint to make out the words. Through the sudden, stinging haze in her eyes. If you're reading this, something happened. And I'm so sorry, Anna. I never wanted you to find out like this. But there's something you need to know. Look under the floorboard in my workshop. The loose one. It's time. That was it. No explanation. No signature. Just look under the floorboard. Anna stared. The words didn't make sense. They swam, twisted, like reflections in a funhouse mirror. Find out like what? Time for what? Her stomach lurched. A cold sweat prickled at the back of her neck. Mabel let out a soft chirp, pulling Anna's gaze downward. The cat was no longer looking at the letter. She was staring, unblinking, at the far side of the garage, where David's old workbench stood. The loose floorboard. Anna's breath came in short, shallow bursts. She carefully folded the paper, hands moving on autopilot, and set it back in the basket. The tiny sweater, the rattle, the ultrasound, all suddenly took on a new, terrifying weight. She stood. Her legs felt hollow, unsteady. Mabel trotted ahead, tail held low but purposeful, heading straight for the workbench. Anna followed. Each step sent a jolt through her. The garage seemed to warp around her, the shadows stretching, the single bulb flickering slightly, like the house itself was holding its breath. David's workbench was exactly as he'd left it. Cluttered, lived in. A coffee stain ring on the wood, a pencil with teeth marks. She hadn't touched any of it, couldn't bear to. Mabel stopped at the base of the bench. She sniffed the floor, then looked up at Anna. Anna crouched. The concrete was icy under her knees. She ran her fingers along the baseboard, where it met the floor. Nothing. Further back, under the bench itself, her fingertips brushed something uneven. A slight gap. Her breath hitched. A single floorboard, slightly raised, just enough to catch a fingernail under. She glanced at Mabel. The cat sat perfectly still, watching. Her gold eyes reflected the dim light, giving her an almost otherworldly intensity. Anna dug her fingers under the edge of the board. It resisted, then lifted with a quiet creak. Beneath it, a shallow space. And inside, a small, rectangular box. Metal. Tarnished silver. About the size of a deck of cards. Anna reached in. The box was cold. Heavier than it looked. She pulled it out, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Mabel leaned forward, nose twitching, but she didn't touch the box. Just waited. Anna turned the box over in her hands. No latch, just a simple hinge. She hesitated. Whatever was inside, David had hidden it. Really hidden it. Not just in a garage, but under a floorboard. In a house she wasn't even supposed to live in. If not for Mabel, she would never have known. Her thumb found the edge of the lid. She lifted it. The sight, nestled on a scrap of velvet, a key. Press. Simple. and a slip of paper, folded in half. Anna set the box down carefully, then picked up the paper, unfolded it. Safe deposit box number 214, First National Bank, 325 Main Street. That was all. Anna stared. Her mind reeled. A safe deposit box? David had never mentioned one. They had shared finances, shared everything. Or so she thought. Mabel made a soft sound, a quiet MRP of curiosity. She sniffed the key, then nudged Anna's hand gently with her head. Well, Anna closed her fingers around the key. The metal bit into her palm. Solid. A piece of David's secret pressing into her skin. She looked around the garage. At the half-finished birdhouse. The dusty flannel shirt. The open cabinet with its eerie little basket. None of it made sense. But the key. The bank address. That was something she could follow. A sound broke the silence. Startling. Anna jumped. Mabel's ears flattened. The garage door handle rattling. Someone was trying to get in. Anna froze. The blood drained from her face. It was 4:17 a.m. No one should be here. No one knew she was here. The rattling came again. More insistent this time. Then the voice. Muffled, but clear. Anna? You in there? David's brother. Anna's breath came out in a rush. Relief, then instant, prickling unease. What was Mark doing here? She scrambled to her feet. The key clenched in her fist. The box, the basket, the will. All still lying exposed on the floor. Mabel darted behind the workbench, melting into the shadows. Watching. Anna hesitated. Then, moving quickly, she shoved the box back under the floorboard, kicked the basket behind a stack of paint cans, stuffed the folded will into her pajama pocket. She kept in her hand. Anna. Mark's voice again. Closer now. The handle jiggled harder. Coming, she called. Her voice too high, too tight. She took one last look at the hidden basket, the disturbed floorboard, then hurried to the door. Mabel followed, silent as a shadow. Anna pulled the garage door open. Mark stood on the other side. Broad-shouldered, dressed in his usual flannel and jeans. But his face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed, like he hadn't slept. Hey, he said. His voice was rough. Sorry to just show up like this. I tried calling. Anna's phone was inside, on her nightstand, where she'd left it when Mabel first woke her. It's fine, Anna said. She subtly curled her fingers tighter around the key. The metal edges dug into her skin. A grounding pain. What's wrong? Mark rubbed his face. He looked exhausted, haunted. I was going through some of Dad's old files. Found something. Thought you should know. Anna's pulse spiked. Files? Know what? Her mind raced to the basket, the will, the key. Coincidence? This couldn't be. Mark reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. Remember when you and David were talking about buying this place? How he insisted on this house. Anna nodded slowly. They'd looked at half a dozen houses, but David had been adamant about this one. It's the one, he'd said. Trust me. Mark held out the envelope. This is why. Anna took it. Her fingers trembled. The paper felt brittle. She opened it. The side. A photograph. Black and white. Faded. A young couple stood on a porch, smiling. The woman held a baby. The man had his arm around her. And behind them, clear as day, was this house. Her house. Anna frowned. I don't understand. Mark's voice dropped. That's Mom and Dad. And that baby. He pointed. That's David. Anna's blood turned to ice. She stared at the photo. The house. This house. Where David had insisted they live. Where he'd hidden a key. A basket. A secret. Mark's next words hit her like a physical blow. Anna, David was born here. The world tilted. Mabel pressed against her ankle. A silent, steady presence. Anna looked down at the key in her hand. At the address. First National Bank. 325 Main Street. A bank that had closed 20 years ago. The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. David hadn't just lived here. He'd hidden something here. Something big. Something he'd never told her. And Mabel, this quiet, scarred cat, had led her straight to it. The key felt like ice in Anna's hand. Mark's words hung in the damp garage air. David was born here. They echoed, colliding with the image of the tiny sweater, the ultrasound, the hidden will, the key to a bank that no longer existed. A cold, sickening vertigo washed over her. Mabel pressed harder against her ankle, a low, continuous rumble vibrating through her small body. Not a purr. A warning. Mark stared at her, his exhaustion momentarily replaced by confusion, then dawning concern. Anna? You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. She thought. The ghost of a life I never knew. She closed her fist tighter around the key, the sharp teeth biting into her palm. The pain was a lifeline. Fine, she managed, the words scraping her throat raw. Just surprised. He never told me. Mark nodded slowly, running a hand through his hair. Yeah, Dad sold it when David was 3. Well. He trailed off, the old grief shadowing his face. Guess it meant something to him. Coming back. He glanced past her, into the dimly lit garage, his gaze lingering on the open cabinet door, the disturbed dust near the workbench. What were you doing out here at 4 a.m.? Anna's mind raced. The basket, the box, the folded will hidden in her pocket. Secrets stacked upon secrets. Couldn't sleep, she said, forcing a weak shrug. Heard a noise. Thought it was a raccoon or something. Mabel was agitated. She gestured vaguely at the cat, who hadn't moved from Anna's leg. Mabel chose that moment to yawn, wide, deliberately, showing tiny, sharp teeth. Then she blinked slowly at Mark. Nothing to see here. Mark's gaze softened slightly as he looked at the cat. What? Is sorry again for barging in. Just seeing that photo, I thought you should have it. He nodded at the black and white image still clutched in Anna's other hand. Keep it? He lingered for another awkward moment, the silence stretching, filled only by the soft drip of rain from the eaves. His eyes flickered again to the interior of the garage, to the workbench, to the freshly disturbed floorboard Anna hadn't fully pushed back into place. You sure everything's okay? He asked, his voice low. David, he was acting strange those last few weeks. Really strange. Jumpy. Secretive. Dad noticed too. Anna's blood ran cold. Jumpy. Secretive. 3 weeks before the accident. The date on the handwritten will edition. It's time. Time for what? Yeah, Anna breathed, the lie tasting like ash. Just grief, I guess. Processing. Mark studied her face for a beat too long. Then he nodded, though doubt still clouded his eyes. Call me if you need anything. Really? He turned and walked back down the short driveway, disappearing into the gray pre-dawn gloom. Anna stood frozen in the garage doorway, the cold key in one hand, The photo of David's young parents and baby David on the porch of this house in the other. Mabel leaned heavily against her, a warm, silent anchor in the swirling chaos. She slowly closed the heavy garage door. The click of the latch echoed like a gunshot in the sudden stillness. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Anna moved through the motions, feeding Mabel, making tea she didn't drink, staring at the photo on the kitchen table. The baby's face was a blur, but the house behind them was unmistakable. His first home. Why had he brought her here? What was he trying to show her or hide from her? The basket sat hidden behind paint cans, a silent accusation. The folded will in her pocket felt like a burning coal. The key was the only tangible thread. First National Bank. 325 Main Street. A bank that hadn't existed for 2 decades. Driven by a desperate, gnawing need for answers. Anna bundled up against the drizzle later that morning, Mabel watching intently from the windowsill. She drove into town, the familiar streets blurred by rain and tears she refused to shed. 325 Main Street was now a brightly lit organic juice bar. Modern, utterly devoid of history. Anna parked across the street, staring at the cheerful sign, feeling a crushing wave of hopelessness. The past was literally paved over. An old man was sweeping the sidewalk in front of the hardware store next door. On impulse, fueled by a despair that felt like drowning, Anna got out. "Excuse me?" Her voice sounded thin-lost. The old man looked up, squinting through the rain. "First National Bank? It used to be here, right?" The man nodded slowly, leaning on his broom. "Yep. Long time ago. Torn down, must be 20 years now. Nice old building. Marble floors." Anna's heart sank further. Do you know what happened to the safe deposit boxes? When they closed?" The man scratched his stubbled chin. "Boxes? Reckon they moved 'em. To the new county records building, maybe? Out on Route 9. Big brick place. Heard they stored old bank archives there. Couldn't say for sure. It was a thread. Flimsy. But it was all she had. The county records building was a sprawling, imposing structure of faded red brick, set back from the highway. It smelled of dust, stale coffee, and bureaucratic indifference. Anna navigated a maze of linoleum corridors, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallways, following signs for archival storage by appointment only. The clerk behind the high counter was young, chewing gum with methodical precision. "Help you?" Anna took a shaky breath, clutched the key tighter. "I'm trying to locate a safe deposit box. From the old First National Bank. Box number 214. The clerk didn't look up from her computer screen. "Got the key." Anna placed the small brass key on the counter. It looked insignificant, ancient. The clerk glanced at it, then back at her screen. Tapped a few keys. Name on the box? David Carter. Or possibly Anna Carter. More tapping. A frown. System only goes back so far. Pre-digital stuff is in deep storage. Takes paperwork. Authorization. She finally looked up, her expression unchanging. "You the executor? Next of kin?" "I'm his widow," Anna said, the words catching. The clerk's expression softened, just a fraction. "Sorry for your loss. But rules are rules. Need proof. Death certificate. Your ID. Proof of relation. Marriage license. Then a formal request form. Takes time. Weeks, sometimes. Depends on how backed up they are retrieving physical files. Weeks. The word hit Anna like a physical blow. She couldn't wait weeks. The mystery, the weight of the secret, the image of that tiny yellowed sweater was crushing her now. Isn't there anything? Anna's voice broke. Anything faster? It's important. The clerk sighed, a sound of practiced weariness. Look, lady, even if I could, without the paperwork, that box number. She tapped her screen again. 214, low number. Probably one of the original boxes from when the bank first opened. Could be anywhere in the stacks. Takes manpower to find it. Without the proper forms, my hands are tied. Defeated, hello. Anna retrieved the key. Its cold weight felt like a taunt. She walked back to her car in the drizzle, the rain mingling with the hot tears finally spilling down her cheeks. The institutional lights of the records building glared down, reflecting off the wet asphalt, making the world seem harsh, uncaring. She drove home in silence, the rhythmic swish of the wipers the only sound. The house loomed as she pulled into the driveway, no longer a refuge, but a vault holding David's unspoken past. Mabel was waiting at the door, not meowing, just sitting, her gold eyes luminous in the gloom of the hallway. As Anna stepped inside, dripping exhausted, Mabel trotted purposefully past her, not towards the kitchen, but back down the hall, towards the garage. No, Anna thought. Not again. Not now. The weight of the day, the crushing disappointment, the suffocating mystery, pressed down on her. She couldn't face that dark space again. Not the basket. Not the memories. Make it please, Anna whispered, her voice thick with tears. Not now. The cat ignored her. She stopped at the closed garage door, sat, and stared at it. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lifted a paw and scratched at the wood. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The sound scraped along Anna's raw nerves. It was too much. The sleepless night, Mark's unexpected visit, the dead end at the records building, the suffocating secret David had left her, the constant, silent pull of this cat towards the heart of it all. Stop it! The shout tore from Anna's throat, raw, ragged, echoing in the narrow hallway. It startled even her. Mabel froze. Her paw remained suspended in midair. She turned her head, slowly, those huge gold eyes wide, fixed on Anna's face. Not scared, not cowed, just watching, taking in the tears, the trembling, the utter unraveling. The silence that followed was deafening. Anna slumped against the wall, sliding down until she sat on the cold floor, her knees drawn up to her chest. Sobs racked her body, deep, shuddering gasps she couldn't control. 14 months of grief, compounded by confusion, betrayal, and now, crushing helplessness, came pouring out. She cried for David, for the life they'd planned, for the secrets he'd kept. She cried for the baby things in the basket, for the unanswered questions. She cried for the sheer, exhausting weight of not knowing. A soft warmth pressed against her side. Anna flinched, but didn't pull away. Mabel had crossed the space silently. She didn't try to climb into her lap, didn't meow. She simply pressed her entire body, side to side, along Anna's folded legs and hip, a solid, living line of warmth. Her head rested gently against Anna's arm. Mabel began to purr. Not a tentative rumble, a deep, resonant vibration, steady as a heartbeat, strong as an engine. It filled the space where Anna's sobs had been, a tangible, physical sound that seemed to travel up through her bones, settling in her chest, a primal rhythm of comfort. Anna's ragged breathing began to slow, drawn into the soothing cadence of the purr. The tears still fell, but the frantic edge of panic subsided. She uncurled one arm, tentatively, and rested her hand on Mabel's back. The calico fur was soft, warm, thrumming with that powerful, grounding vibration. Mabel leaned into the touch, turned her head, and nudged Anna's wet cheek gently with her nose. A cold, damp nudge. An unmistakable gesture. You're not alone. In that moment, huddled on the cold hallway floor, with a scarred alley cat pressed against her, Anna felt a shift. Not a sudden revelation, but a quiet settling. The frantic need to know, right this second, dissipated. The crushing weight was still there, but it felt bearable. Mabel had led her to the secret, but she couldn't force the answer. Some doors, even with the key in hand, couldn't be opened instantly. Some griefs, some mysteries, needed time and space to breathe. The cat's unwavering presence, her fierce, silent comfort, wasn't about solving the puzzle. It was about enduring it. Together, Anna took a deep, shuddering breath, inhaling the scent of damp fur and dust. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Mabel's purr deepened, a satisfied rumble. Anna pushed herself up from the floor. Mabel stood too, stretching languidly, then looking expectantly at the garage door. But this time, there was no demand in her eyes. Just quiet companionship, ready to follow or lead wherever Anna needed to go next. Anna looked at the closed door, then down at Mabel. The key was still clutched in her hand, cold and hard. The paperwork would take weeks. The answers were locked away. But the small, fierce creature purring at her feet, who had witnessed her breaking point and hadn't flinched, that was real. That was now. Anna reached down, not towards the garage knob, but towards Mabel. She scooped the cat up, surprised by how light she felt, yet how solid. Mabel settled into her arms, pressing her head under Anna's chin. The purr vibrated against Anna's collarbone, holding the cat close, feeling the steady thrum of life against her own aching heart. Anna turned away from the garage door. She walked down the hall, towards the living room, towards the weak afternoon light filtering through the rain-streaked window. She sank onto the sofa, Mabel a warm, purring weight in her lap. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, the silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the sound of healing, one resonant purr at a time. The mystery wasn't gone. The grief wasn't erased. But the frantic, clawing panic had receded, replaced by a fragile, hard-won calm, anchored by the small, scarred creature who had refused to let her drown alone. Anna closed her eyes, rested her cheek on the top of Mabel's head, and breathed. Just breathe. For the first time in a long time, it felt like enough. The rain stopped sometime before dawn. Anna knew this, because she was awake to hear it. Not the abrupt silence of a storm passing, but the slow, quiet retreat of drizzle into mist. Into nothing. She hadn't slept. Not really. Just drifted in that hazy space between exhaustion and awareness. Mabel curled against her stomach, a warm, purring weight. The cat hadn't left her side since the hallway. Not for food. Not for water. Just stayed. As if she understood that Anna, in this fragile, unraveled state, needed the anchor of her presence more than anything else. The first gray light of morning crept through the blinds. Anna watched it paint slow stripes across the living room carpet, across the coffee table, where the old photograph of David's parents still lay. The baby in the photo, David was a blur, but the house behind them, her house, stood crisp and clear, a silent witness to generations of secrets. Mabel stretched, her claws pricking gently through Anna's sweater. Then she sat up, widely, and blinked those gold eyes at the growing light. She looked at Anna, not the intense, demanding stare from the garage. Something softer. "You survived the night." Anna reached out, running a finger along the notched edge of Mabel's scarred ear. The cat allowed it, even leaned into the touch slightly. "Progress." "Thank you," Anna whispered. The words were raw, barely audible, but Mabel's ear twitched. She knew. The cat stood, arched her back in a luxurious stretch, then stepped delicately off the couch. She paused, glanced back at Anna, then headed toward the kitchen. A clear message. "Enough wallowing. Breakfast." Anna almost smiled. The mundane normalcy of it, the simple, biological need of a small creature for food, was a lifeline back to the present, to the routine of living. She followed. The kitchen was cold. Anna filled Mabel's bowl, watched the cat eat with single-minded focus. Then she made tea, properly this time. Boiling water, steeping leaves, honey, small rituals that grounded her in the now. As the tea steeped, her gaze drifted to the hallway, to the closed garage door. The basket was still in there. The will, the mystery, but the frantic, clawing need to know right now had dulled, not gone, but muted, tempered by the quiet understanding that some answers, like grief itself, couldn't be rushed. She took her tea to the living room. Saturday. The warmth spread through her chest. Mabel joined her, leaping up onto the armchair opposite. She licked a paw, then settled into a loaf position, eyes half-lidded but watchful. Anna reached for the photograph again, studied it. The young couple looked happy, hopeful. The mother cradled baby David with the easy confidence of new parenthood. The father's arm around her shoulders spoke of pride, protection. But Anna knew how this story went. David's mother had died when he was 3. His father had sold the house. And now, decades later, David had brought Anna back here. But her fingers traced the edge of the photo. Then, carefully, she turned it over. Faded handwriting on the back. Michael, Grace, and baby David. Home at last. June 1978. Home at last. The word struck Anna. Had they been living somewhere else before? Why was this home at last? A soft thump drew her attention. Mabel had jumped down from the chair, padded to the bookshelf, and was now sniffing intently at a stack of unpacked boxes. Not scratching, not yowling, just investigating. Anna watched her. This cat, who had led her to the garage, to the basket, to the floorboard, was now nosing at the last remnants of David's life. Boxes Anna still hadn't been able to sort through. Setting down her tea, Anna crossed to the shelf. Mabel looked up at her, then deliberately headbutted the lowest box. This one. It was a small carton, labeled in David's messy scrawl. "Memories, do not toss, seriously, Anna." The parenthetical made Anna's throat tighten. A joke, a plea, a piece of him still lingering in black Sharpie. She lifted the box. It was lighter than she expected. Mabel followed her back to the couch, leaping up to sit beside her as Anna set the box on her lap. The flaps weren't sealed, just tucked in. Anna opened them slowly. Inside, a haphazard collection of David's things. Ticket stubs from concerts they'd attended, a dried corsage from their wedding, a handful of foreign coins from their trip to Italy. the mundane artifacts of a shared life. Beneath these, a manila envelope, thicker than the rest. Anna pulled it out. Vertebrate. House stuff, important. Her pulse quickened. Mabel leaned closer, her nose twitching as Anna opened the envelope. Inside, property deeds, inspection reports, and, at the very bottom, a single sheet of paper, folded in thirds. Anna unfolded it carefully. It was a letter, handwritten, dated 2 weeks before David's accident. Anna, if you're reading this, something happened. And I'm so sorry. I should have told you everything sooner. But some truths, they're hard to speak out loud. You'll find the key. The bank is gone, but the box was transferred to county storage. It holds answers about this house, about my family, about why I needed us to come back here. There's more in the garage. Things I couldn't bring myself to say. Things my father left for me to find. I think you'll understand when you see it all. I love you. Boys. D. Anna's hands shook. The letter was so David. Vague where it should be specific. Apologetic where it should be explanatory. But the love was unmistakable. Mabel nudged the paper with her nose. Then unexpectedly, she climbed onto Anna's lap, stepping directly onto the letter. She circled once, twice, then settled right on top of it. Her purr started up again, a deep, resonant vibration against Anna's thighs. Anna stared down at her. "You're sitting on my answers," she murmured. Mabel blinked up at her, utterly unconcerned. "You'll live." And somehow, Anna laughed. A real laugh, startling in its lightness. The first in, she couldn't remember how long. The sound seemed to surprise Mabel too. Her ears perked up. She studied Anna's face, then butted her head gently against Anna's stomach. More of that. Anna stroked the cat's back absently, her mind whirling. The letter confirmed what she'd already guessed. David had secrets. Family secrets. House secrets. And they were all tied to this place. To his childhood here. To whatever was in that safe deposit box. But the frantic urgency from yesterday was gone. Replaced by a quiet determination. She would get the paperwork. She would wait for the county to retrieve the box. She would uncover David's truth. But on her own timeline. Not in a frenzied, sleepless rush. Mabel's weight on her lap. The steady purr. The morning light now streaming through the windows. It all anchored her to the present. To the understanding that some mysteries, no matter how painful, could be faced with patience. And that she wasn't facing them alone. She lifted Mabel gently, scooting her to one side so she could retrieve the letter. The cat grumbled, a soft MRP of protest, but settled again immediately. Anna folded the letter carefully, tucked it back into the envelope, and set the entire box aside. For now, there were more immediate needs, like breakfast, a shower, maybe even sleep. She stood, stretching stiff muscles. Mabel leapt down, landing with a soft thump, and immediately wound around Anna's ankles. Food first, then shower. Priorities. Anna smiled down at her. "All right, boss. Let's eat." The kitchen felt different in the morning light. Warmer, less oppressive. Anna made toast, scrambled eggs. Mundane acts that felt strangely healing. Mabel supervised from the counter, occasionally stretching out a paw to bat at the spatula. As Anna ate, she pulled out her phone, opened the browser, typed, "County records request form, safe deposit box access." The paperwork would take time. The answers would come. But for now, in this sunlit kitchen, with a purring cat nudging her elbow for a bite of egg. The weight felt bearable. Mabel succeeded in stealing a tiny piece of scrambled egg. She chewed triumphantly, then licked her chops with satisfaction. Anna shook her head. "You're a menace." Mabel blinked at her, utterly unrepentant. "And you're smiling again." Anna realized it was true. The grief was still there. The mystery still loomed. But in this small, ordinary moment, with sunlight and a thieving cat, she had found a sliver of peace. It wasn't closure. Not yet. But it was a start. The county records office took 3 weeks to process Anna's request. 3 weeks of waiting. 3 weeks of Mabel sleeping curled against her side every night, as if standing guard against the ghosts in Anna's dreams. 3 weeks of the basket in the garage remaining untouched. The tiny sweater and ultrasound photos still hidden beneath paint cans. Anna didn't rush. She filled out the paperwork methodically, gathered the required documents, David's death certificate, their marriage license, her ID. Mabel supervised from the kitchen table, batting at the pen cap whenever Anna paused too long. The morning the approval email arrived, Anna's hands shook as she clicked it open. "Your request to access safe deposit box number 214 has been approved. Please present this authorization and valid photo ID at the county archives building." Mabel, perched on the back of the couch, let out a soft "urpy" as Anna exhaled sharply. The cat's gold eyes were fixed on Anna's face, unblinking. Today's the day. The drive to the archives felt surreal. The key, now worn smooth from Anna's constant worrying, hung on a chain around her neck. Mabel sat in the passenger seat, unusually still, gazing out the window as if she, too, understood the gravity of the trip. The archives building was quiet, sterile, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The clerk, a different one this time, older, eyed Anna's authorization, then the key, then Mabel in her carrier. No pets allowed in the viewing area. Anna opened her mouth to argue, but Mabel settled the matter herself. She flopped onto her side in the carrier, yawned dramatically, and closed her eyes. "I'll be right here." The viewing room was small. A table, 2 chairs, a security camera in the corner, and on the table, a metal box, tarnished with age, but unmistakably the twin to the one Anna had found under the floorboard. Her breath caught. The clerk set it down with a soft clunk. "Take your time. Buzz when you're finished." Then the door clicked shut, leaving Anna alone with David's secret. The key slid into the lock smoothly. A quiet click. The lid lifted with a faint creak. Inside, a stack of papers. Orderly, topped with a sealed envelope labeled simply, "Anna, read me first." Her name in David's handwriting. The sight of it sent a jolt through her. She broke the seal with trembling fingers. "Anna, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry. Not just for leaving, but for the secrets. My whole life, I thought I was protecting you by keeping the past buried. But this house, our home, it deserves the truth. And so do you. My mother didn't just die when I was 3. She disappeared. Vanished without a trace one night. The police searched. The town whispered. My father sold this house 6 months later and never spoke of her again. But before he died, he gave me a box. Her box. The one in the garage. The baby things inside. They weren't mine, Anna. They belonged to a child no one knew existed. My sister. Born 2 years before me. Given up for adoption when my parents were too young and scared to keep her. My mother never stopped looking for her. Never stopped grieving. The night she disappeared, she'd gotten a lead. A real one. She left a note saying she was bringing our sister home. She never came back. I found all this out after Dad died. The basket, the letters, the newspaper clippings she'd hidden in the walls. I didn't know how to tell you. Didn't know how to explain why I needed us to buy this house. Why I spent nights in the garage, pulling up floorboards, searching for whatever she might have left behind. I thought if I could just find something, some clue about where she went, about the sister I never knew, then maybe I could fix it. Maybe I could bring them both home. I love you. And I'm sorry. For the secrets. For the weight of this. But if anyone can finish what my mother started, it's you. Be careful. And trust Mabel. She knew where to look before either of us did. Always yours, David. Anna's vision blurred. Tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink in places. The sister. A disappearance. A lifetime of hidden grief. It explains so much. David's insistence on this house. His late nights in the garage. The strange, haunted look he'd get sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching. Beneath the letter, the rest of the box's contents waited. Newspaper clippings about Grace Carter's disappearance. Handwritten notes with leads she'd followed. A name, Eleanor Marie Carter. Born May 3, 1976. Given up May 5, 1976. And at the very bottom, a small, faded pink ribbon, tied in a careful bow. Anna traced the ribbon with one finger. This was what David had been searching for. Not just answers about his mother's disappearance, but a connection to the sister he never knew. The sister who might still be out there. She carefully repacked the box, save for the letter and ribbon, which she tucked into her pocket. Then she buzzed for the clerk. Mabel was waiting when Anna stepped back into the lobby. The cat took one look at Anna's face and let out a soft, knowing chirp. You found it. The drive home passed in a blur. Anna's mind raced. The sister. A disappearance. A mystery spanning decades. It should have felt overwhelming. But instead, there was a strange, quiet clarity. Mabel seemed to sense the shift. She perched on the passenger seat, watching Anna with those unblinking gold eyes. Not pushing, not demanding, just present. The house welcomed them back with its usual creaks and sighs. Anna went straight to the garage. This time, she didn't hesitate at the door. She flipped the light on, marched to the paint cans, and pulled out the basket. In the daylight, the tiny sweater looked even more fragile, the ultrasound photos more haunting. Anna lifted the rattle, gave it a gentle shake. The sound was tinny, faint with age. Mabel circled the basket, sniffing intently. Then she did something odd. She pawed at the blue fabric lining the bottom of the basket, as if trying to burrow beneath it. Anna frowned. She lifted the fabric and gasped. Hidden beneath, stitched carefully into the basket's base, was a pocket. And inside that pocket, a locket, tarnished silver. Anna pried it open with trembling fingers. Inside, 2 tiny photographs. One of a newborn baby, Eleanor. The other, a young Grace Carter, smiling, her eyes alight with love and sorrow. And engraved on the inside of the locket's lid, the single word, remember. Anna's breath caught. This was it. The piece David had been searching for. The clue his mother had left behind. Mabel nudged the locket with her nose, then looked up at Anna. Her gold eyes were bright, knowing. Now you see. Anna sank onto the cold garage floor, the locket clutched in one hand, David's letter in the other. Mabel climbed into her lap, purring loudly, a living, breathing comfort. The mystery wasn't solved. Not yet. But for the first time, Anna could see the shape of it. And more importantly, she could see the path forward. She looked down at Mabel. The cat blinked up at her slowly. Now, Anna stroked the notched edge of Mabel's ear. Now, she whispered, we find Eleanor. The words hung in the dusty garage air. A promise. A purpose. And for the first time in a long time, Anna didn't feel like she was drowning in grief. She felt like she was standing at the edge of something new. Something important. With Mabel purring in her lap, and the locket warm in her hand, Anna allowed herself to hope. The search for Eleanor Marie Carter lasted 6 months. 6 months of late-night research, of phone calls to adoption agencies, of dead ends and false leads. 6 months of Mabel curled beside Anna's laptop, watching the screen with those knowing gold eyes, as if willing the answers to appear. The breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. An email from a private investigator Anna had hired. Found her. Eleanor Marie Carter, now Eleanor Whitaker. Living in Oregon. Married. 2 kids. Works as a pediatric nurse. She has no idea about her birth family. Anna read the words 3 times before they sank in. The sister. Alive. With a family of her own. Mabel, sensing the shift, headbutted Anna's elbow insistently. Show me. Anna printed the investigator's file. Photos spilled from the envelope. A woman in her late 40s. With David's smile. His nose. His way of tilting her head when she laughed. The resemblance was uncanny. That night, Anna sat at the kitchen table, a blank sheet of stationery before her. How did you write this letter? How did you tell someone their entire life had a hidden chapter? Mabel leapt onto the table, deliberately sitting on the empty page. Not yet. Anna stroked the cat's back. You're right. She deserves more than a letter. The trip to Oregon took 3 weeks to arrange. Anna rehearsed what she'd say 100 times. Practiced in the shower. In the car. To Mabel, who listened with feline patience. She almost turned back twice. Once at the airport, her hand freezing on the suitcase handle as doubt crashed over her. Who was she to disrupt this woman's life? Once outside Eleanor's modest suburban home, her finger hovering over the doorbell. But then she remembered the locket, the tiny face of the baby who'd grown up never knowing her mother searched for her. And she rang the bell. The woman who answered had David's eyes. Anna knew her instantly. Eleanor. Her voice barely worked. I'm Anna Carter. I think I'm your sister-in-law. The conversation that followed lasted hours. Tears. Disbelief. More tears. Eleanor's husband brought tea neither of them drank. Her teenage daughters sat wide-eyed as Anna told them about Grace, about David, about the house and the basket and the locket. When Anna finally placed the locket in Eleanor's hands, something shifted. Eleanor traced the engraved remember with a trembling finger. I always felt like part of me was missing, she whispered, like there was a shadow just out of sight. Anna showed her the photos. The baby sweater, the ultrasound. Piece by piece, Eleanor's past slotted into place. The hardest part came last. Your mother, Grace, she didn't abandon you, Anna said gently. She spent her life looking for you. And then one night, she just disappeared. Eleanor's face crumpled. But then she did something unexpected. She reached for Anna's hand. Thank you, she said, for finding me, for bringing her back to me. Anna flew home 3 days later, exhausted, wrung out, but lighter than she'd felt in years. Mabel greeted her at the door with an indignant yowl, then immediately curled around her ankles in forgiveness. The house felt different now. Not a tomb of grief, but a bridge between past and future. Anna placed Eleanor's contact information on the fridge, next to a photo of David. "You did it," she told him silently. "We found her." Mabel took to sleeping on David's old pillow now. Her small body curled where his head used to rest. Anna didn't mind. It felt right, like the cat was keeping watch, like she was part of the story too. One evening, as autumn leaves swirled outside, Anna sat on the floor of the garage, the basket in her lap. Mabel stretched out beside her, batting lazily at a dust mote. The space no longer felt oppressive, just quiet, waiting. Anna ran her fingers over the woven reeds. Grace's hands had held this, had packed it with love for a child she couldn't keep, had hidden her final clue where only the right person would find it. Mabel rolled onto her back, paws in the air, belly exposed. Complete and unguarded. Anna smiled, reached down to rub the soft fur. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Mabel purred. Of course she had. The garage door creaked in the wind. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed. Time moved forward, as it always did. But in this moment, with the basket and the cat and the lingering scent of sawdust, Anna felt something she hadn't in a very long time. Not the absence of grief, not the end of missing David, but the quiet understanding that love, true love, never really leaves. It just changes shape, sometimes into a locket, sometimes into a letter, and sometimes into a small, scarred cat who knows exactly where to lead you. Anna lifted the basket carefully. It was time to put it where it belonged, not hidden behind paint cans, but on the mantel, next to David's photo, next to the new one of Eleanor and her family. A family reunited, a circle closed, a story that began with loss, but didn't have to end that way. Mabel trotted ahead, tail held high, leading the way. As always, the end. Or is it? This story gripped millions. What happens next? Could Mabel have even deeper secrets? Could Eleanor hold the key to Grace's disappearance? Subscribe and hit the because real-life mysteries like this unfold daily on our channel. Comment below, what should Anna and Eleanor investigate next? A cold case? A hidden room? You decide. Smash that like button if this ending wrecked you. We know it did. Share with someone who'd love Mabel's sixth sense for secrets. Follow for more heart-wrenching, true-feeling stories that blur the line between coincidence and destiny. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary connections come on four paws. Yeah,